In Dagestan, 18 kilometers from Makhachkala, there is the highest sand dune in Europe, Sarykum. In Kumyk, the word means yellow sand. The area of sand in the dune is 1,175 hectares, and the height of the sand hill is 262 meters. This geological landmark is famous for being the filming location of the movie White Sun of the Desert. But what's remarkable about this dune? There are many like it in the desert. That's the point. It's in the desert. But you can't call the surrounding area a desert. It's a mountainous region and steppe. It's an agricultural area and there are trees growing here, and it often rains. The northern part of the Sarykum Dune gradually turns into a clay steppe, while the southern part is bordered by a mountain ridge, and this sandy hill is the only one here. The area no longer has sand. Nearby flows a small river called Shurazen, only 80 kilometers long, which flows into the Caspian Sea, but its banks are pebbly and there is absolutely no sand in it. Since the 19th century, scientists have wondered about the origin of the Sarykum Dune. Some said wind formed it, but then why is there no sand elsewhere in the area? Other scientists suggested that the sand in this place is the result of the destruction of some mountain rock. But it can be made entirely of quartz sand, and when it breaks down, stones, gravel, pebbles and clay are also formed. All of this should generally stay together, not separated by fractions or mineral composition. Another interesting fact is that the Sarykum Dune is included in the territory of the Dagestan Nature Reserve, supposedly because many animals, insects and plants from desert regions live there, and for this area they are unnatural rare specimens. It makes sense. If it were a taiga, there'd be bears, but since it's sand, desert animals live there. And the most interesting thing is that the Sarykum Dune is recognized as a biosphere reserve and is listed by United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. This is a natural area specially protected by international law, created to preserve the natural ecosystems and gene pool of this region. One might ask, why does United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization care about some sand dune? What makes it so uniquely important? Is it just us? Is it about the rare plants and animals in these sands? This dune only became a United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization reserve in 2017. Before that, the International Institute didn't pay any attention to this dune. There is an opinion that the local residents started taking the sand away, but it's not allowed to do this activity in the reserve according to our federal laws, and the reserve has been here since 1987. Subtitle editor. Geologically, the Barkan is young. The area isn't a desert. It gets rain and has vegetation. But it still hasn't covered or taken hold of the sand, and it was only able to take root on parts of some slopes. Let's think instead of geology about the possible mechanisms for the appearance of this huge pile of sand. It's clear to anyone that the sand couldn't have been blown in from somewhere else, otherwise the sand would be spread over vast areas of the region, but instead it's lying in a huge pile. Something couldn't have been destroyed locally either, without the formation of stones and other minerals. There is a legend similar to the one about Tamerlane and the stones in the hill that were brought by his warriors. One of the legends about the origin of the Sarykum Dune says that during the Mongol invasion of Dagestan, the commander Timur planned to fight the alliance. He first wanted to learn the detachment's size, and Timur used an unusual method to do so. He ordered his warriors to fill their helmets with sand and bring it to one spot. As a result, a high hill was formed. From this hill, the commander was able to spot the Dagestani detachment. Seeing that the detachment was small, he decided to defeat it. However, he was unaware another detachment with equal warriors was behind Barkan. Therefore, after engaging in battle, he suffered a crushing defeat and was forced to flee. If this hill isn't artificial, geology becomes our main focus. Let's propose some hypotheses. First, this is the bottom of a former sea, and it is logical to assume that this sand lies at a certain depth, since there used to be a sea here, for example, when the Caspian Sea had different shorelines. Then the sea withdrew. The sand was covered by other rocks that were eroded, including clay, but during mountain formation, this sand was pushed to the surface. In one place, a dune was formed. The Caspian Sea is really not far from the dune, just over 18 kilometers. It's quite possible that there was a sea here not so long ago. But why is there a sand outcrop in just one place? Maybe there are sand quarries in the region, who knows? Version number 2. The sand was washed out by water masses coming to the surface. Anyone who has pumped a freshly drilled well with a pump knows that at first a lot of sand comes out with the water. Sometimes there's a lot of it. It's the same here. A fault formed and sand washed out from one spot. A dune formed, a dune formed, a dune formed, a dune formed, a dune formed. Silanes are gases from the silane family. When they come into contact with oxygen in the air, they burn, forming silicon dioxide and water. They can only form and exist deep underground. If such a silane release reached the surface, it would burn completely, producing quartz, sand and water. Maybe this process is still slowly going on and the dune is growing? That's why research here is prohibited for safety reasons. Silanes are formed deep underground under high pressure and temperature in the presence of the necessary chemical elements. They are released during degassing and may not have time to reach the surface. They reduce certain rocks and oxides, taking oxygen from them and forming a layer of sand and water. This can also explain the water deposits under the Sahara. This process of forming water and sand may still be ongoing. It's slow, but it happens everywhere. That's why the pressure in the layers increases. And in some weak spots, water finds its way to the surface as springs, oases, lakes, and wells. That means the pressure remains stable. Imagine a gas bubble of silanes, hydrogen, and methane erupting from the mantle. Hydrogen follows. The oxidation processes of these gases, or in other words the reduction of oxides in the rocks, sharply increase in their rate. The water pressure in the layers rises and bursts out in huge springs, bringing sand or dissolved minerals to the surface. Mud volcanoes or simply water outlets are formed. For example, there are 3 strange volcanoes in Yemen near the city of Damt. They are cones of non-volcanic rock and look like mud outlets. Other non-desert regions like the Khara sands in Siberia and the Tekulans of Yakutia also have similar sands. It is possible that the same mechanism is responsible for their origin and for the appearance of the Sarykum Dune. Editor, now let's consider the unofficial versions of the origin of the dune. This is the version of the medium with repeatedly confirmed information. Beneath this dune lies a city buried with special whirlwind technology. This happened when the old civilization was being destroyed. And then it becomes clear why United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization included the Sarykum Dune in its list of sites protected by international agreements. No research can be done there. This topic also involves all buried ancient cities. According to the medium, the technology for creating stable tornadoes was used where it was necessary to erase a city that did not agree with the new order. They said everything was naturally buried over time, calling it a natural process. What do local residents recall about this? Legends say that 2 twin brothers fell in love with the same girl, who lived in the middle of a large lake and only went out for walks by boat. So she announced a contest. Whoever would fill in the lake, she would marry him. One decided to destroy a mountain and fill the lake with its debris, while the other took a big sack and went to the seashore to collect sand. As usual, the legend allegorically tells about certain gods who possessed vast resources and technologies and were engaged in a confrontation. As a result, this lake with some important technological device was buried. In the video, Clay from the Sky, we looked at numerous facts about how many castles all over Europe were buried with soil. It is assumed that there was a destruction of representatives of a non-human race that had previously controlled Europe. In this case, burying a protective technological object with sand is not a difficult task. At the moment, civilization is facing a shortage of sand. It is used to make concrete, which is used in the construction of cities. The Sarykum sand dune had 2 mounds, one large, one small. The small mound has been dismantled. If the large dune is further dismantled, people will eventually uncover what was buried there. Most likely, that's why a ban was imposed on the use of sand. So, all these theories were proposed based on the idea that there was a global flood in the 19th century and in the 18th century the previous highly developed civilization came to an end. Well, and of course, official history can't explain the sudden appearance of a giant sand dune in a place where it shouldn't be.